What is up, guys? It is the Turtle Girl. Welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. Today I'm joined here by Kuzan, my leopard gecko, and today's kind of just going to be a story time video about how I finally convinced my parents to let me get a leopard gecko. Also, I'm probably going to be in a lot of awkward poses throughout this video because this gecko is going to move when this gecko wants to move. Generally, he just likes to use me as a jungle gym when I take him out. So that's the deal with all of this and all this craziness with this gecko moving all over the place. So anyways, some of you might remember at the beginning of this year in January, I was able to go to a reptile expo and get a pet leopard gecko. And some of you might remember that this has been pretty much years in the making. I have wanted a leopard gecko for a really long time. It was one of the first reptiles I ever wanted, even before turtles. I think I first found out about them in a book that I was reading about different types of pet reptiles, and this was probably 5, 6, maybe even 7 years ago. And so I had constantly been doing research, constantly asking my parents, but they just were not a fan of the idea of having like an animal that has to eat live insects, let alone that animal being a lizard, because you know there's generally a stigma against reptiles and lizards in general. Like, they're slimy, they're gross, why don't you just want a hamster or a bunny rabbit, something cute and fluffy? But there was just something about leopard geckos that just really intrigued me and made me interested. And so I had been doing research on leopard geckos for the longest time, and I had tried many different tactics at trying to convince my parents to let me get a leopard gecko. One of those main tactics involved writing essays and letters to my parents, and I actually found this a couple days ago that inspired me to make this video. And so I found these 4 pages, oh there goes the leopard gecko, these 4 pages talking about why I should get a leopard gecko. And so I'll go ahead and read some of these to you really quickly so that you can kind of see where I was coming from. But basically I would just write letters and essays and presentations upon presentations about why I should be able to get these pets. And so the reason I actually ended up writing all of these specific letters, these ones that I'm about to read to you, was because I found this breeder on Instagram, and I had been looking around for leopard geckos. You know how even when you know you can't get something, you still shop around online for it? And so I found this breeder on Instagram that was selling, or rather adopting out, this carrot tail tangerine, really beautiful female leopard gecko. I fell in love with this gecko, okay? And I wanted this gecko. And this was probably 2.5 years ago. And so I was just trying so hard to convince them, like make one final push, one final effort to let them say yes, because I wanted this animal so bad, this specific animal. And so I wrote all of these talking about why I should get them. And so I'll go ahead and read some of those to you really quickly. This first page is entitled Leopard Gecko. So it starts off, I say, "Hi Dad and Mom. As you know, I have a spare tank that I just got from my cousin and my aunt. Inevitably, as you must have figured out by now, I would like to get another pet. Just recently it's come to my attention that a leopard gecko breeder is adopting out a beautiful carrot tail tangerine leopard gecko. Leopard geckos are generally considered the best beginner reptile because of their low maintenance, tolerance for handling, and tolerance of beginner mistakes. Here's a brief rundown of cost and care. Keep in mind that I have the tank." And so then I write down here, I went through like some of the initial setup costs here at the bottom of what it would take to set up a leopard gecko tank. I do notice that I did not include a thermostat, which is probably a mistake on my part. I do have a thermostat, and I did get a thermostat before I got this guy, and there goes the gecko. He just slides all over the place. Just stay up here on my knee. And so I just gave them an initial setup cost to show them that I had researched how much this thing was going to cost and that I would be able to pay for it. So that's why I put that on there. The next part we have to bug or not to bug, and this is the back side of that first page. So it says, "As you may have already thought, leopard geckos are insectivores, which means their diet consists of mostly bugs. I know this may seem a bit problematic, definitely problematic in my parents' eyes, but just bear with me. After examining several different types of feeders, including crickets, mealworms, and roaches, I have found that dubia roaches are easiest to keep in the long run and are more nutritious for the gecko. I would keep them in a small storage tote under my desk in my room so you would never have to see it." As you can see, I did actually go through with that. There's my roach bin right here. Also, I'm like twisting myself over. This is really an awkward position. Anyway, they are also easy to breed, so I would not have to go to the pet store weekly. Here's a breakdown of cost to set up, breakdown, wow, there goes my Australian accent, breakdown, it's a breakdown, sorry. Here's a breakdown of cost to set up a colony, and then I continue to break down the cost for what it would take to set up a roach bin like the one behind me, to show them again that I am cognizant of how much this would cost, because you know, I was a researcher for sure back then. So that is just page 1. We still have 3 more pages to go through, front and back. The next page we have here is Leopard Gecko Care and FAQ, in which I go through what the care and maintenance that gecko ownership entails. So I have, for every day, I have some certain chores that I have to do, like checking water, spot clean any stool, to check on the roaches, remove bad food, feed the gecko, and gut load the roaches, clean out hides, change, rinse down substrate. And the reason I did this was to show them that I know what kind of care this entails. I'm gonna be a responsible pet owner. I'm gonna take care of it. You won't have to worry about it. And then here I have a frequently asked questions, or basically not really frequently asked questions. It was more like questions I anticipated them asking. So the first question I put here was, won't you get bored? Because this is something I guess a lot of parents might ask their kids if they said that they really, really wanted a pet. Because sometimes kids do just get a pet, and then 3 months down the road, 6 months to a year, they won't care about it anymore because that first initial excitement just goes away, and now they just have to take care of it and clean out its enclosure, and that can get boring for some kids. So I said, the thing I love about these creatures is that they are so unique and interesting. How cool is it to be able to watch them stalk and catch their prey? I also like how you can make their setup look natural. Oh, I scared the gecko. I'm so sorry, baby. What about feeder insects? This was a big one for my parents. Like, as I mentioned in the beginning, one of their biggest turnoffs with the leopard geckos was the fact that it would have to eat live bugs. What I said here was, as I mentioned before, I would probably keep it in the garage. Also, dubia roaches are tropical, so they would not survive if they escaped. It would just be too cold. If you don't want to look at them, you can just avoid them. This next paper I have is entitled Common Misconceptions, and goes through some of the first thoughts that go through people's head when they think reptiles that are incorrect. Reptiles make too much noise. So basically, I'm not going to read through all of this. You get the point. I'm going through some misconceptions of what people think reptiles might be. So that's that second page. So now we have this final page, which is why reptiles make great pets. And this one is a really fun one. So I'm just going to go ahead and read this through with you. Reptiles require little space. Reptiles aren't super expensive. Reptiles make hardly any noise and will not smell if kept clean. Reptiles can be left at home when you go on vacation. Most being opportunistic feeders, many can go at least a weekend without food. Reptiles have long lifespans. Reptiles don't really cause allergies. Reptiles are unique, interesting, and exotic. Reptiles are relatively new to the pet market and stand out from your typical hamster or guinea pig. Reptiles come in many shapes, sizes, personalities, and colors. There's a type of reptile for most anyone's lifestyle or situation. So anyways, I wrote those 4 pages of why I should get a leopard gecko 2 years ago. And so after I wrote all these letters, nothing really happened, but I still really wanted a gecko because look at this face. How can you not want something that has this face? I mean, come on. They're just too cute. And so finally in May of 2018, I think I made a video of this reptile expo. I had been asking a leopard gecko for a long time leading up to my birthday because that's usually when I try to ask for pets. And so in May of 2018, I was at the reptile expo. I kind of had the feeling I was going to be able to get one, but I didn't really know. And so I went to this reptile expo not intending to get a leopard gecko because my parents had not told me whether or not I would be allowed to. So I'm at this reptile expo. Some of you might remember this video, but at that reptile expo, my dad calls me and says, hey, you know what? I'm going to let you get a leopard gecko. And so I'm like, great, but I don't have a tank set up. I don't have anything set up. My dubia roach colony's not ready. None of this is ready. And so I'm just thinking, is it really a good idea to get the leopard gecko right now? They don't really have any that I love. And so I decided, you know what? I'll get the axolotl for now because that's another pet that had been on my list. But I don't want to get the leopard gecko right now because I'm not ready for it. Like, my tank's not set up, none of it's set up. And so now, I come back home from this reptile expo, have Mochi the axolotl, super excited about him, focus on him for a bit. A couple months later, I'm starting to think, oh, well, there's this reptile expo in January that's gonna be here. I think I want to get my leopard gecko then. And so I start just, getting all the stuff ready. And then finally, come the beginning of this year, I end up with Kuzan. I go to the reptile expo, I look around, and I find him. And so that's the story. Come on, focus. So that's the story of how I ended up with Kuzan, my leopard gecko, how I finally convinced my parents, and how I finally got him. So that's really fun. Oh, and now, there we go, he's moving. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this little, oh, he's running now. He's ready for this video to be done. So anyways, you can see Kuzan's back in his tank. Now he's just chilling, doesn't have to worry about me. But that's today's video, basically just a story time. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to drop a thumbs up down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys next Friday. Have a totally awesome day. Bye-bye.